We're out of practice.
We are. It's been 1 month.
It's been 1 month.
And we're out of practice.
We're out of practice. And I was still recording during that 1 month.
You were!
But I didn't do intros.
Okay.
Read this poem in the front in very bad French.
Or, let's not anger the Duolingo gods.
Duolingo loves me.
Okay, if you're gonna be a vampire, a werewolf, or just an immortal being, which one would you pick?
So, like, just an immortal being is just like a human, but you don't die?
Yeah, like you had the Philosopher's Stone.
No. If I was gonna be immortal, I'd want powers.
What kind of powers? So would you want, like, the furry full moon powers or the blood-sucking
No, I don't
vampires?
want furry powers. I don't want to be a vampire or a werewolf. Can I be, like, a fairy?
Sure.
Or like, magic?
Sure.
Be, like, a wizard?
Taco? Would you be Taco?
I would be Taco.
You would be Taco.
I'd be Taco or Crowley. I would want to be magic.
Yeah.
Magic, but I wouldn't want to suck anybody's blood.
Yeah, fair. The blood thing does not appeal to me either.
Nah.
No. Well, fine, if we're going outside the parameters of the question.
I always do.
I know. I'd probably want to be Nephilim.
Nephilim. So you'd want to have a big target on your back.
Pretty much.
That's a weird thing to want.
Half angel's cool, though.
Half dead, isn't?
Well, okay. So.
No, be a Nephilim if that's what you want to do.
Yeah,
I'm just like, God will drown
I would
you
fit
in a flood.
in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, I guess.
It is the city of the dead.
Yep. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Casey.
So raise a glass and let's get started.
Okay, Liz, what are you drinking today?
Well, since this book takes place in the Great American South, I am drinking bourbon mixed with Diet Coke. Yes, I am drinking again. I am so freaking excited to be drinking again.
Liz is drinking again.
You will also hear baby snuffles because my 7-week-old children are in the room.
Yeah, Evelyn and Charlotte are guests on today's podcast.
Yes, they are.
Evelyn is dead to the universe, but Charlotte has got some stuff to say, I guess.
Yeah. She's probably working up a good diaper for me later.
Yeah.
And that was probably a great shot of my butt.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, YouTube.
I forgot we're doing the video. We're also trying a video version. So
Yes.
today, so Liz is drinking Diet Coke and bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm drinking a cocktail of my own concoction. It's got pineapple rum
Yes.
and bitters and cherries.
Casey tried to make one for me
She
as
didn't like it.
kindly as humanly possible, but I don't like... We've discovered I don't like pineapple rum, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Which makes it a little difficult to make a cocktail with pineapple rum base. So anyway,
Yes.
I'm drinking 4 shots of pineapple rum right now is what I'm doing.
Woo!
Because we made the cocktails and I'm gonna drink them now.
Lord knows it'll help us get through this book.
Anywho, today we're discussing The Beautiful by Renée Ahdieh, who is an author who has got quite a few books under her belt.
Yes.
She's a best-selling author in New York Times. Not that that means anything.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel,
I'm
Kate.
just saying, I see that on every book cover. Does it really, at this point, like, okay, everybody's a best-selling?
I don't know. If I became a New York Times bestselling author, I would put that on everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'd be
But I'm
introduced
just saying-
as New York Times bestselling author, Elizabeth.
But, like, if everybody's on the best-selling authors list for the New York Times, is it even special?
Well, not everybody's on the list.
It
That's
kinda
why it's
feels
a
like
big
they are.
deal.
I bet if I pull
Not
out a
every
random
book.
book off your shelf here, I'm going to get New York Times best-selling author. Let's see.
Okay, you're taking Maureen Johnson. That's not fair.
New York Times best-selling, Maureen Johnson. What about,
Let's try this one. I got this one at Comic-Con last year. Midwest Independent Publishers Association.
Dean Koontz, New York Times bestseller. I'm just saying, you see it on a lot of books.
Lori Wetzel does not have that on the cover, although I don't know if that is because of something, because I have not read this book yet.
Well, if it's an indie book, it might not be. I'm just saying that it just seems like I don't think it's as big a deal as people make it.
Yeah, and then Casey, in the process, to prove her point, has destroyed my bookshelf.
I didn't destroy your bookshelf. I took 2 books off your bookshelf.
But they were organized.
Well, they can be reorganized.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, Renée Ahdieh has quite a few books under her belt. I guess
This is the first one of hers that I have read, I must admit.
Yeah, it's the first I've read of hers. I guess I would qualify it as teen.
Yeah.
Like young adult. It says ages 12 and up, grades 7 and up.
Well, Celine is 17.
Yeah.
So, typically.
Yeah, I mean, this book has stuff in it I wouldn't want a 12-year-old reading about.
Although I probably read it anyway.
Although I probably read it. Yeah, I probably... So anyway, this book is about a girl named Celine Rousseau. And she is...
Who moves from Paris to New Orleans. She was a seamstress, a dressmaker in Paris.
And then she moves to New Orleans to go to a convent to work there and then eventually be found a man to marry.
Yes. Fun fact.
Which was a pretty common... This book is set in the 1870 something.
Yeah. Back then, Celine is known what used to be commonly called back then as coffin girls. They were women who came to New Orleans.
1872.
Yes, who came to New Orleans for finding wealthy husbands, and so everything they carried came in these big long boxes from the ships, and so people thought, oh, these girls who are coming off these ships look like they're carrying their own coffins, so they were nicknamed coffin girls.
That's creepy.
Thank you, and that's why we drink girls.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so Celine is one of these girls. She's come to New Orleans, 1872, which is interesting timeline-wise, just because...
Pirates.
Well, I was thinking more because 1871 was one of the big French overthrows. That was for the third democracy.
I didn't even think about that.
Or the Third Republic, excuse me.
I didn't even think about the French Revolution.
She would have been alive during... not the Reign of Terror. That was in the 1700s.
Yes.
That's Robespierre and the guillotines.
Mm-hmm.
But France has had 5-6 revolutions.
There's a whole podcast about those two.
Minor revolts and spats and things. But in 1871, there was a rebellion that led to the Third Republic. So this was a democratic France. This is most familiar to the France we have now.
Yes.
But 1871, it only happened a year before she left, which means before that she was under a monarchy. So it's just interesting that she's going from that to New Orleans, which is in a democratic republic, but is also kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
New Orleans is very, and I've never been to New Orleans, but New Orleans is very much like...
To this day, New Orleans is still very much its own thing, even though it is part of the United States.
Yeah, they celebrate royalty there a lot.
Yes.
There's also a lot of people there who speak French and Creole.
Yes.
Which I think this book did to excess, actually, but...
Yes. And I don't speak French.
I'm working on it.
No, darling, I don't.
So anyway, she arrives along with about 6 other girls. Mm-hmm. There's 2 German girls. There's a Scottish girl.
But the 2 most prominent are her best friend Pippa.
Who's British. She's from Yorkshire.
And Annabelle.
And Annabelle, who is Scottish.
Yes.
And they are all come together they all met, I guess, in England and like they traveled to England.
Traveled all the way here.
And then they took a boat from England to New Orleans. And they go to the convent to stay there. At the convent, everybody gets different jobs.
Yes.
Annabelle, for example, was a governess before she moved.
So she became a
school teacher in the church's school in the
and
rectory.
Since Celine was a seamstress, her job is to raise money for the convent. And so while she and Pippa are raising money for the convent, they overhear these 2 women talking about a girl who was murdered on the docks the night before, her throat ripped out.
Which we actually had a chapter from the point of view of that girl. The prologue is from the point of view of a girl who is going to meet a paramour on the docks.
Yes, and we do occasionally have chapters from the point of view of the murderer and the person who is in charge of the murderer. If that makes sense.
Most of the chapters are from Celine's point of view, but occasionally they're from other people's points of view. And just like the book that Allie and I read last month, the tense changes. Like whenever it's from Celine's point of view, it is third person limited.
Good Lord.
And whenever it's from...
Your episode last month.
And whenever it's from the point of view of other characters, it tends to be in first person.
Yes.
But it's not, there's no hard and fast rules, which is one of my complaints about this book, but whatever. Anyway, they come to the convent, they start doing work. They overhear about this girl who had her throat ripped out at the pier, was murdered, and that like some sort of symbol was left in a marking on the ground.
Yes.
And then they meet
Odette.
Odette is a very wealthy girl now.
Yes.
New Orleans has a very big class divide between the working class and the very wealthy, and like the wealthy are always doing these parties, and they've come to New Orleans in January, which means they're in the months leading up to Mardi Gras.
Yes.
And so there are festivals going on, there are masquerade balls, there are these lavish parties being thrown, and Odette is from that world.
It's almost like New Orleans is a city where it's like the new world and the old world just collided and somehow made it work.
Yeah.
All while being built in a swamp with a high water table that floods constantly.
Yeah.
And you can't build a basement because it floods.
Yeah. So they meet Odette, and Odette loves the handkerchiefs that Celine has made to sell to raise money for the convent. Yeah. She says they're very well made, and she wants to buy them all.
Yes.
She wants to know who made them. Celine says she made them.
And she discovers Celine was a dressmaker in Paris. So of course Odette has to have her design this gown for
the masquerade ball.
Yes, for the
Mardi Gras.
Mm-hmm.
So she asks Celine to design the gown, which kind of sets off a chain of events.
Yes, sets off a chain of events.
In the meantime, we're learning a little bit about Celine. Celine is a very stubborn sort of girl, very opinionated.
At that point in the book, if I heard the word murderess one more time...
Yes, Celine is also a murderess.
Which she's not.
She left Paris after killing someone, and we don't get the details.
No, till later.
Right away, it's a slow thing, but she feels very guilty about this.
But if you're a woman, you know. Especially with the way she talks about her shape. Mm-hmm. And she's like, her bosom attracts the wrong kind of attention, and then she's like, I've spilled a man's blood. You know what happened.
Yeah, there's not really any nuance in
No.
the situation. At any rate, she has a lot of guilt about this murder that she committed. Apparently, she lied to her father, although we never really hear what she said to her father to get him to let her leave.
Yeah.
And she fled to New Orleans to start a new life. And so this is kind of in the
to repent and become a pious woman.
And this is kind of in the background of her thoughts throughout the course of the book. So she keeps constantly being like, well, I should not go with this weird rich woman to make her dresses. I should be staying at the convent and doing my prayers in the evening. And then the other side of her that's more adventurous and wants something interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go and see what's up. And
she ends up going with Pippa.
She ends up getting actual permission from the Mother Superior. Mother Superior finds out about it because Annabelle
told
on her, because Annabelle's not able to tell a lie.
No.
And so she sends Pippa and Celine to go get the measurements for the dress.
Because she sends Celine, but she sends Pippa because Pippa is a very kind, charming, very honest and open girl.
So she knows that Pippa will keep an eye on Celine.
Yeah, and she also knows Pippa can't lie to her either.
So Pippa and Celine set off that evening to go to a place called Jacques.
That's another baby squeak.
To meet up with Odette.
Yes.
And as they are doing this, they come across a scene in an alleyway. And the scene is that there is a man being beaten by 3 other men in the alleyway.
And another man standing to the side and just watching.
And another man standing and watching. And so Celine doesn't want to let this stand, so she calls out to them to stop. And that's when she meets Sebastian Saint Germain.
Yes.
So Sebastian Saint Germain is the nephew of a very influential man
I have issue with this part.
A very influential man in New Orleans. He's not very often there, but he has lots of properties in New Orleans. He's building hotels all over New Orleans, and Sebastian runs his business for him.
Yes.
Sebastian is also with a couple other men, Arjun.
Yes.
And Boone, right?
Yep, Arjun and Boone.
And they're the ones who are beating the man in the alley.
Is Nigel there? I think Nigel's there.
Nigel's also there.
Nigel's also... Yes, Nigel is there. He has to be.
Yeah. So his friends Nigel, Arjun, and Boone are also there.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are beating the man. And
Celine basically tells them to stop.
Tells them to stop. Sebastian says that the man deserves it and she doesn't know. And during the argument, she basically goes toe to toe with this man. And he picks her up off the ground and moves
to get her to move
out of the alleyway. And while he's doing that, the man they've been beating pulls out a knife to attack him, and Arjun touches the man, and the man passes out.
Yeah.
Like, he just literally touches them with his fingertips, and the man passes out, which really is very unsettling to Pippa and Celine.
But they end up going to Jacques.
And at Jacques, they meet Odette. She takes them up to the second floor. Jacques is a restaurant, a very fancy restaurant.
Yes.
A place that most of us couldn't afford to eat.
Precisely.
And they are kind of standing there, and then they're eventually taken up to Odette on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
The second floor is a gambling hall.
Yes.
There's a roulette table. There's cards. All the people there seem to be, it's like quiet. I kind of pictured
it's a den of iniquity.
With like red velvet curtains.
Oh yeah. It's what you expect. Because I mean, you go into this book knowing it's going to be a vampire book.
Yeah.
It's what you expect a vampire den of iniquity to look like.
It's the thing is, here's my problem, is that.
Oh, she took a drink before she said it. It's going to be bad.
If you're like, I'm gonna write a vampire book, and then you're like, I'm gonna set it in the French Quarter of New Orleans. Listen, I hate the bitch, but Anne Rice already did that very, very well. Like, is she a nightmare human? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are her books good? Also yes. Are they kind of the standard for vampire novels going forward since the 20th century? Yes.
Well, see, here's the thing. We're in New Orleans, and I super expected there to be, like, some hint of voodoo or African magic or something like that, because that's also a major part of the culture there, and it's not mentioned anywhere in this novel.
There is a lot of emphasis on the mixing of races.
Yes, there is, especially with Celine, and even Celine, I guess, she's, like, her mother was Asian,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, oh, don't tell anybody? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, no, so it's 1872.
Yeah.
The Civil War has just recently ended.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's how they spelled Casimir.
Black people have rights. Casimir, in fact,
Yes.
is the owner of Jacques. He's the manager.
He's a man of color.
And he's a black man. But black people have just gotten, in the last 10 years, their freedom and some modicum of rights, although obviously not a reasonable level of anything. And so Celine is very shocked to see most of the city is fairly segregated, but within these circles that Sebastian St. James and his friends run, there seems to be a very wide variety of races. Sebastian, for example, and like Sebastian is like, kind of described as being olive-skinned.
Yeah.
And I think we find out later that his mother was
a free slave.
Was a free slave, and his father was white.
Yeah.
So he's mixed. And then there's Arjun, who's Indian.
Yes.
And then there's
look at my daughter. Do you see?
Wowie zowie.
Temporary pause so I can fix my child's bow. And we're back.
So Bastian is mixed race. His mother was a freed slave. Arjun is Indian. There are two women, Hortense and Madeline, who are black. And then we've also got Nigel and Boone, who are both British.
Yes.
But there's a wide variety of people there. And then there's Celine, who is half Asian.
And Odette's a lesbian.
Yeah, Odette is a lesbian. And Celine is half Asian, although her father always told her to keep it a secret. That's another thing that drives me nuts with this book, is that, she talks about her, tragic backstory and her secrets, but, never tells us anything. She's like, I have a vague memory of my mother, walking with me on the beach and singing me a song and holding my hand, but, we don't know if her father left her mother, we don't know if her mother died, we don't even know what country her mother was from, or how she and her father met. I think it would be interesting if,
her mother was some sort of, because everyone calls Celine, the Queen of Darkness or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be interesting. It's immortals recognize shit like that, so I would not be surprised if there was something in her mother that showed up later. Because this is going to be a series, right? You said this is going to be a series?
There's at least a sequel. The sequel is called The Damned. I would say it's just the 2 books, like The Beautiful and The Damned, you know, the whole... But my point is, a lot of this book is doing it's treading a lot of the same ground that other more prevalent vampire novels have done already. Yeah. It's just not very original.
Well, anyway, while they're there, getting Odette's measurements or whatever, Bastian shows up.
And he and Celine engage in some weird flirtation / battle of wits.
Yeah.
It's very Bastian.
Antagonizing / flirting.
It's very Shakespearean. And in fact, Celine is a big fan of Shakespeare.
Huge.
It brings it up several times. She loves to quote his works.
In the handkerchief she made, in the filigree, she
GTTAN.
Get thee to a nunnery.
Yeah.
And then later, when there's a Midsummer Night's Dream themed masquerade ball, she's like, "Has nobody here read the play?" She's so
she's
insulted.
All mad because people are dressed as satyrs and stuff. God forbid people have a good time. But anyway, she's just very humorless. I'm sorry, she really is.
Yeah.
And she
I feel like Celine has a lot of like fight me dumbass energy. And I don't know if I really care for that, but it's like not in like a healthy fight me dumbass energy. It's a very selfish fight me dumbass energy.
She just is assuming that everybody else is out to get her. And I guess she's got some stuff in her background that makes her like wary of other people. But she spends so much time just like arguing with and antagonizing other people for what I can tell for no reason. It's just kind of... But anyway, Bastian seems to like it. And so he's here for her, and then they're flirting.
And also, too, Bastian is the only one who treats her like an equal and not a woman.
Yeah. And so they flirt for a while. There's a spill that happens, and Pippa is going upstairs with Odette to get the wine out of her dress. And so Bastian and Celine stay down flirting, and then when they come back, she says, "Is there somewhere we can go to finish your measurements that's a little more private?" Because we've literally just been doing it in the middle of this gambling hall.
Yeah, and they're like, "Yeah, we can go this way." And they open the door and there's a dead body. Yes, so they go to this different room to get Odette's measurements.
Well, before they do that, they're a little unsettled anyway because besides, there's somebody who says that he can smell lies in the room, and then they see a chess game going on where the pieces are moving across the board of their own volition. You know, things like that. So they're very clearly becoming aware that the people here have strange abilities.
Yeah.
And Odette says that she can see the future by touching someone's skin. And she says that she's seen Celine's future and that she's going to become a tamer of beasts.
Yeah.
And this place, by the way, is called Le Cour des Lions, the Court of the Lions, which is another thing that makes me roll my eyes because there is a lion court in Anne Rice's novels.
Yeah.
So it's like she wasn't even trying, but whatever. So she asks Odette if they can go to another room to finish the measurements.
Yes.
And they walk into the room, they find a dead body.
Not only a dead body, it's Annabelle.
Annabelle has had her throat ripped out the same way as the girls appear, and there is another symbol on the ground next to her.
And so the police have to be called, and then we are introduced to Detective Michael Grimaldi.
Is it Michael? It's not Michelle?
It's Michael. In the audiobook they said Michael.
That's interesting.
Because see, I read this, I flipped between audio and book with this one.
I was going to ask you whether it was Michael or Michelle, because Grimaldi is an Italian name. He's from an Italian family. Yeah. But since... That's the other thing that drives me nuts about this book. There's a couple things that drive me nuts about this book, but another thing is, like, the French. Like, if anybody here has ever read a book set in New Orleans, or if anybody ever has watched a TV show in New Orleans, or if anybody's ever read an X-Men comic that had Gambit in it, you know that sometimes there's some French because there is kind of like a Franglish thing going on there. But like,
there's so much French in this book, there were times I didn't know what they were
and there are times there are times that they don't translate it. I'm currently learning French, so for me it was kind of interesting because I did have a pretty good grasp of what was going on most of the time. But like,
I know Spanish and Italian.
Literally,
no French. Je ne sais pas. That's it.
They didn't translate. Like 90% of the time, she did not translate it. And so people are just talking in French, or they'll slip into French. And a lot of Bastian's friends not only will slip into French, they'll also slip it back and forth in Spanish as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just kind of disconcerting.
Which the Spanish I got, but I'm like, it was hard to follow sometimes.
It is a little disorienting. And there's just a lot of it.
And I don't know if that was the intention when she was writing this.
I don't know if she was thinking at all when she was writing.
This could be an interesting episode with you.
It was in. So anyway, they find Annabelle's dead body, and Detective Michael Grimaldus is called to the scene.
Dun dun dun! Another handsome young man.
Michael and
Bastian
have bad blood.
Yes, old rivalry. We discover later it's over a woman, but they do not.
Is it over a woman or is it about Bastian's sister?
See, they never elaborate on that.
They never elaborate on a lot of things. You want to know the
No.
thing that really drives me nuts about this book? Is that she brings up so much shit and then never revisits it at all.
Well, maybe she'll revisit it in the next one.
That's not how you write a book. It's one thing to have a couple of things that you like keep in for the future, especially if you're going to end a book on a cliffhanger. It's another. Anyway, my problem with the book is that there's so many different concepts introduced and that they're not revisited at all. And like, presumably you can do that a little bit if you have a planned sequel for something.
Yeah.
But like,
It's
to excess. It's to excess. Like the weird symbols that are written on the ground by the bodies.
We do find out about that.
Where?
Loop. L-O-U-P. Loop guru.
What? What are you talking about?
They're predating ancient Greek from Carthage.
It says L-O-U-P.
Loop.
So why is he writing it?
Because he's a loop guru. He's a werewolf.
He's not.
Yes, he is.
He's a vampire.
I thought he was a werewolf.
No.
Well, maybe it's a hint. Because if he...
Why?
Well, at the end of this book is clearly vampires versus werewolves. Clearly at the end of the book. Especially with the big reveal with Luca and Emile at the end.
Right, but it's not at any point clear, like...
Well, Emile was doing this because she wanted revenge on the Count of Saint Germain, so she wanted him to know why this was all happening. Yes, and it's because of the Fallen versus the Brotherhood, which would be another word for vampires versus werewolves.
Right, but...
Are things just now falling into place?
No, they don't make sense. Nigel is a vampire.
Yes.
He was turned by Nicodemus.
Yes.
So
but he's doing it for Emile, who's a werewolf.
Right, but why is he doing it for Emile?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. This isn't me not understanding it. It's that she never explained anything.
No.
This is a half-baked plot and it sucks. Anyway, Annabelle's dead. Michael Grimaldus shows up. He's a dick, but he's also handsome.
And he's also interested in Celine.
So I guess that means that we have to pay attention to him or something. Anyway, he doesn't like Celine. He thinks she's lying to him, which she is, but not about what he thinks she's lying to him about. And then Odette comes back with Mother Superior. Mother Superior covers for them. And then the next day, the
detective
comes
lawyer.
to the
lawyer.
the church to question the girls, and Arjun is there as well to be their lawyer, because he's Bastian's lawyer. Well, he's not Bastian's lawyer, but he's Bastian's legal advice, because he can't be a barrister because he's Indian, and they're not allowed to be barristers. So he comes to sit with the girls mainly to make sure that they don't implicate Bastian. And this annoys Celine. But she doesn't implicate Bastian, even though she thinks she has something that can.
She saw a flash of yellow, bright yellow.
She saw Bastian put something yellow into his pocket.
Which matched Annabelle's hair ribbon.
Had been wearing a hair ribbon.
Which was missing when she was killed.
Sidebar, Annabelle was only at Jacques because Mother Superior had sent her to spy on Pippa and Celine.
Yeah.
And Mother Superior at no point shows any remorse for sending this girl here
To her
and getting
death.
her killed. I mean, she
She
couldn't have
pretty
known.
much blamed Celine for it.
Yeah, she couldn't have
Which
known
is
that it was
super
going to happen,
unfair.
but like, yeah. We
I
don't have
know.
time to unpack all that.
No, we don't.
Anywho,
Charlotte agrees.
so this is the beginning this is when there's just murders happening a lot. So there's murders happening, and in between the murders,
You're so big.
Celine is hanging out with these weird rich folks that hang with Bastian, right?
Yeah.
There's one scene where Bastian is like meeting with this pair of brothers who
He wants them to invest in a hotel.
he wants them to invest in a hotel his uncle wants to build in New Orleans. It's the tallest the city would have had. He also brings Phoebus, who is the son of the mayor, with him because he thinks it would be good to have someone that powerful position in politics on his side.
Who his mother is trying to set him up with Pippa, who is Celine's best friend.
Yes, not that that is ever, as you know, really dealt with at all.
Yeah.
So after the first murder of Annabelle,
Yes.
she starts spending more time with the Bastian and his friends.
Yes.
And then she's working on this dress for Odette. And then one day she's walking home and someone is following her.
Yeah. And it freaks her out.
It freaks her out. It's late at night. And she's trying to walk home and someone's following her. So she's walking home.
Yes.
And she finds herself
Being followed.
and she's very nervous about it. She tries to run and something is chasing her.
And she knows something's chasing her, and she's rescued by none other than Bastian.
By Bastian. And
It's that very teenage romantic, she's running, he pulls her into a dark alley and holds her close and protects her, and
the thing runs away.
yeah.
And
He takes her... Okay, so he takes her to
one of the parades.
yeah, one of the parades, so that way they get people around her, it's public, she feels a lot safer, and she has the most fun she's ever had in her life.
They kind of talk very candidly with each other about themselves.
Yes.
And the things that they've done and things that they've seen. And they then decide at the end of the night we will be acquaintances. We're both attracted
Yes.
to each other.
But we're not going to do anything about it because you need a proper gentleman to marry you, and you're not.
And you don't have the status to marry me.
Yeah. So we're just going to be good friends, good acquaintances, like that ever ends well.
He ends this interaction by calling her mon cœur, which means my heart.
Yeah, way to keep it as neutral acquaintances, Bastian.
Yeah, he's not good at it.
No.
But Bastian takes her back to the convent, and then
Sees her back safely, yeah.
several nights later, while she's working on the dress,
Yes.
she is staying in Pippa's room because they've consolidated their candles so that she can work on
Yes.
the dress later.
And
into the
Pippa has a
evening.
bigger room, a bigger, quote, cell than
Yeah.
Celine does.
So they're
For her watercolors.
They're consolidating. They are consolidating their candles, and they then she walks Celine back to her room at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And they go into the room, and
There's a dead body on her windowsill.
there's a dead body on a windowsill, and she's attacked
She is.
by something in the room that's still in the room that has killed someone else. Attacks her. She stabs it with a pair of
Sewing
shears.
Good girl.
That is unfortunate because sewing shears are the good scissors. I hate whenever people use sewing shears for anything. other
Hey,
than
it
sewing.
was self-defense.
She did what she had to.
Yeah.
I understand.
She
But
didn't happen to have a sword made of silver on her person at all times.
so anyway,
So after that, Michael...
the man who's dead is the gardener
Yeah.
of the convent, and so then the Mother Superior
And there's
says,
another symbol.
Yeah, another symbol. And Mother Superior says you have to leave. You gotta go. Out. You're everywhere you go, people die. And this is something that's been said about Bastian already because his sister died, his parents died, one of his roommates at military academy was murdered in a bar brawl,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got into a fight with the man who he thought was responsible and almost killed him and got kicked out of military school.
Yes.
So death follows Bastian everywhere, and now it seems that death follows Celine everywhere.
Yes.
It's not a coincidence that this starts happening after she
Meets Bastian.
meets Bastian. So she's supposed to leave, and Michael tells her he's got a place for her at the police station, but then Odette rolls up in her carriage and is like, no, come stay in the penthouse suite at one of our nice hotels. And so they take her up to Nicodemus's room, Nicodemus being Bastian's uncle.
Yes.
He's got a penthouse suite on the top floor of one of their hotels.
Yes.
And they are letting her stay there. And she stays there, and
she plans to use herself as bait for the murder because she doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. Because of her, she starts distancing
there have been
herself
3 people
from...
who killed already.
Yeah, she starts distancing herself from Pippa because she loves Pippa and doesn't want anything to happen to her.
And so...
This is the Midsummer Night Ball that they go to because she believes if she goes up, she will attract the murderer and hopefully they can capture her.
Not yet.
Oh, was that too early?
Yes.
Right, because at the Midsummer Night Ball, she's not speaking to Bastian.
Right, so she and Bastian meet up again, and he tells her that he doesn't like her, that he doesn't want anything to do with her, because he's trying to protect her, blah, 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 and she's like, I've killed a man.
Yeah.
And we get the whole story, basically a guy tried to
That happened in the hedges, kind of. You know, the traditional love confessions in the hedge at a ball kind of a thing.
Yeah, so she tells him that she killed a man who tried to rape her back in Paris in the studio where she worked, and that she fled from the country, and that she's not afraid, that she's going to use herself as bait, blah, blah, blah. Somehow this confession makes Bastian willing to accept their love, and they get about halfway into a sex scene.
Yeah, halfway. Until another body is discovered.
Yeah, they go up into the suite and they're like getting into bed together.
Because nothing kills the mood more than murder.
Yeah, so they're like literally in bed with each other, and Celine sees Nigel's head and arm up on the bookcase, just ripped off and just dropped on the bookcase.
And there's another symbol.
And there's a 4th symbol. So now one of their own has been killed.
Yeah, and so that pisses people off. Bastian's like...
Nicodemus comes back to town. Nicodemus never comes into town in New Orleans.
Which,
he usually stays
Nicodemus, it is revealed, is also known as the Count of Saint Germain, which if you know anything about the Count of Saint Germain, this royally pisses you off. As it did me. But Count of Saint Germain is an alchemist who found the Philosopher's Stone. He is not a vampire.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Nicodemus comes back into town, and he threatens Celine. He tells her, you stay away from my nephew. You tell him you don't love him, you reject him, or I will kill you.
Yeah.
And at this point...
And everyone that you consider your friend is on my side. Yeah, including Odette.
All of Bastian's best friends, Odette and Hortense and Madeline and Boone and Arjun, they are all Nicodemus's people, and they're all with him.
Because even Odette says, she's like, you're my friend, but they're my family.
Yeah. And at this point, I don't think they've explicitly said it yet. No. It literally takes until the end of the goddamn book for them to explicitly say it. But they are all vampires that were turned by Nicodemus. Mm-hmm. Bastian is human. Bastian is the last human descendant of the Count of Saint Germain
which,
line.
Again, if you know anything about the Count of Saint Germain, it was rumored that he was a Hungarian noble or a prince that was taken out during the Civil War, which means he has some sort of vague connection to Bathory, Elizabeth Bathory, which we just did a whole episode on Carmilla. So
yeah. So at any rate,
so the link is there. It's just hella distant.
So at any rate, this is the last living human line. So he turned all of these other vampires specifically to protect Bastian.
Yes, but he refuses to turn his own human line.
So he says, you need to stay away from Bastian. You're a danger to him. We've lost one of ours already. We can't afford to lose another. So you need to reject him at the masquerade ball. And she agrees. And at the masquerade ball, she talks to Nicodemus and tells him such. And he arranges for her to meet Bastian out on the balcony, but
he's a vicious fucking liar.
I don't think he lied. I think
he just intended to leave her waiting.
I don't think he had spoken to Bastian yet.
So he intended to leave her waiting.
Well, she wasn't out there that long. He said he'll be out there in 20 minutes, And she's been out there barely 5, and she gets fucking kidnapped. Who could have foreseen this coming?
Me.
She's taken to the St. Louis Cathedral.
Yes.
And is tied up, and she comes to, and it is revealed that the person who has been stalking her and haunting her, the person who has been stalking her and haunting her is Nigel.
Nigel, who faked his own death. And Nigel is kind of crazy. He's angry and resentful for having been turned against his will into a vampire to protect a human boy. And he has decided he's going to take from Bastian whatever Bastian loves in order to make him feel pain. And that is Celine. Bastian talks to Odette because he's like, something's wrong, Celine's gone. And Odette is like, yeah, no, I can't tell you, I swore. And he's just kind of like, buy me an hour. And she's like, okay, fine. And so he has to go to the police station because that's where, like, you know, the wall with the red strings is. So he's trying to figure out where this person took Celine. And he runs into Michael, and he and Michael get into it, and he punches Michael, which apparently breaks a major treaty.
Yeah, apparently the Saint Germains and the Grimaldis are not to lay hands on each other.
And he just did, so.
But it doesn't matter, because it's not going to be brought back up in this book.
No,
this book
it's
is
not going to be
literally
brought back up in
seconds
this
to
book.
being over. So
There was a peace treaty between vampires and werewolves that apparently Bastian broke.
although Grimaldis, as far as we know, is not a vampire or a werewolf.
No, it is implied that Luca is,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that Michael is.
But what about the Nona?
Nona? Back in that day to be around for your great-grandchildren? Fuck yes, Nona.
She looks like an old woman.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. She could have been turned when she was old.
Anywho, whatever. Who cares? This book sucks. So Bastian runs to her rescue. She gets her throat half torn out. Bastian gets his throat half torn out. And then Nicodemus and his squad roll up, kill Nigel.
Mm-hmm.
But Bastian is
Dying. And Celine begs Nicodemus to save him, to turn him, and she's like, and she says, if I forget him, will you save him?
So Nicodemus casts a spell on
Celine
that
makes
to
her
make
forget Bastian.
Bastian ever
Which
existed.
which we don't know if Bastian survived or was turned, but it is implied.
We know he's turned.
Yeah, so, and she's like, there's holes in my memory, and blah, 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 and that never ends well.
Yeah, she wakes up at the police station and Michael is sitting with her. And I don't know.
There was a movie in, like, the 90s that I never watched because it seemed way too sad, but it was one of those that it was like the guy had, like, he proposed to his girlfriend, and then that night she was killed, and so he had to keep going further and further back to prevent her from dying. But then by the end of the movie, he realizes the only way to prevent her from dying is to help along her relationship with another man. So to, like, save her, he had to, like, get her to fall in love with somebody else. That's what I kind of feel like is going on right here, where it's like, in order for Celine to save Bastian, she has to, like, open up her, like, it is implied with the title of the chapter, multiple ways for happiness or whatever. It makes me feel like that it's like it's trying to force her Michael's way instead of Bastian's way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care that
Anyway,
much.
end of the book, Celine has forgotten Bastian. It is implied that
Bastian has been turned.
yeah, and that she's going to start trying to be closer to Michael, and then we found out that the person who orchestrated this whole thing was Emile, who was Emile, whatever,
Amelia.
who was Bastian's sister, who he thought died 10 years ago, and she's a werewolf.
Apparently she did
And
not
she's
die.
dating Luca, who is Michael's cousin.
Apparently she did not die. Apparently she asked Nicodemus to turn her to a vampire.
And he said no.
He refused, and she ran away, faked her own death and ran away, and had the werewolves turn her.
Yeah.
Into a werewolf so she could be immortal that way. Whatever.
So this book ends, there's not a lot of answers.
There, like, literally nothing is clarified at this end. Like, there's no clarification as to why Nigel would want to give clues as to who was behind it all.
Which, by the way, if you get to the book and it's like the symbols spell out loop in...
L-U-P-E.
Yeah. L-O-U-P. Like the French loop girl.
No, it's L-U-P-E.
No, it's L-O-U-P.
I don't think so.
I know my words.
L-U-P.
L-O-U-P. L-O-U-P. Loop.
Yes. Yeah, it's L-O-U-P, although it does not look like that.
Mm-mm.
But whatever. Although I don't...
I'll have to talk to my husband about Carthage.
There's no good reason for Nigel, within the narrative of the novel, to...
No, not that we know of.
To
Of course, it
reveal
could
that.
only be expressed in the next novel, which... This is one of those books that I'm so mad because I'm not super invested in the story, but now I have to read the second one because I want answers.
The other thing is, we never
I feel like I was tricked.
Like, presumably Bastian's parents and his roommate, and these were all killed by Nicodemus's enemies, but we don't get anything more than that vagary. We don't find out what happened to Emile that makes everybody so sure that she died. We don't find out why Bastian thinks it's his fault, because he says on multiple occasions that Emile died and it was his fault. We don't find out anything about the brother. Like, at no point do they expressly say the Brotherhood are werewolves and the Fallen are vampires.
And I mean, as an author, you do kind of want to leave gaps, but at the same time, you don't want to leave so many gaps.
This is ridiculous. I've never in my life seen a novel that left so many things unanswered. And like, yeah, again, sure, you have a sequel, whoop-de-doo, but like, you have to answer a question. Like, part of the point of reading a novel is to feel a sense of satisfaction when you have finished it.
I don't feel
and whenever
satisfied
I
with
finished
this
this
ending.
book, I just felt frustrated.
I
was like,
I
and
don't
not
feel
to
satisfied.
mention this
I will never be
goddamn book.
satisfied.
This goddamn book.
It's 430 pages.
25 pages. And it's a story that could have been told in 200 pages.
I was trying to explain to my husband about this book. I told him, I'm like, I like it, but there's something about the language of this book and the way it's written where it's so indulgent.
It's purple prose. Yeah, in addition to being too long, it's well over 200 pages longer than it needs to be. It's also full of purple prose. At one point, they have a phrase, deliciously sooty eyelashes, which makes me want to rip my face off. Really, deliciously sooty eyelashes, pull it together. Reel it in just a small amount.
Well, most books are like a nice, hearty steak. You know, a well-written book's a nice, hearty steak. It's got flavor, it's got aroma, but it's not more than it needs to be. This book's a fucking beignet with powdered sugar and honey. It's so excessive.
It's obnoxious. And, again, it's vampires in New Orleans, which Anne Rice already did better. Not to mention, if you see the cover of the book, it's just...
The cover is gorgeous!
Well, no, the cover is riffing on Twilight.
Well...
100%.
I don't know, there's not an apple.
It is a black book with a single monochrome picture in the middle with red.
Yeah.
It's got the same font.
I like the cover. The font's different.
Everything about this book is unoriginal and uninspired. The main character is uninteresting. She's annoying. The romance is shallow and boring.
I had a very difficult time really getting invested in Celine. Like, the things that, like, upset me about her...
She also spends 90%...
She's 17, so she is dramatic because she's 17. But at the same time, too, it's like the whole dark secret about being like, I defended myself from somebody who was trying to hurt me.
Yeah, she spends 90% of the book being like, I'm a bad person. I'm going to hell because I killed a man who was going to rape me. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he's going to hell first, honey, I promise.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't understand why. Like, and the only time that she finally starts to feel less guilt about committing that murder is when Bastian says it was good that she killed him.
Yeah.
And so it's just like... No, I'm not interested.
No.
The most interested I was when she tried to discuss how she felt about seeing people of mixed races and like people of different races all mingling and commingling together, because she was made to keep her racial history secret by her father.
Yeah.
And I know the author of this book is half Korean. So like that was the most interesting that Celine ever got for me. And then I didn't even dive into that really. It never explained anything about her mother or why her father thought, you know, I was not interested in Bastian.
I like the name.
Bastian was just another smarmy pretty boy who has everything he could want in life. And then at the end of the book, he also gets immortality. Like, okay.
Yeah, because I feel like I feel like this book is a book of missed opportunity. Because I feel like if you're going to use the Count of St. Germain, there's so much you could use, especially like his time in the court of the Sun King, or
Well,
the Philosopher's Stone, or the alchemy, or you could have used so much.
Well, you could have, except that somebody else already did. There's a whole entire book series about the Count of St. Germain, a whole YA series that already exists. So
you should read those.
Yet another case of everything being uninspired and riffed off of something that's already been done better. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know.
I feel like there are true stories that happened in New Orleans for me that are more fascinating than this book.
Again, Renée Ahdieh has written a bunch of books, and they're all very different. I kind of looked at the Goodreads reviews for this, and even people who are fans of her kind of suggested the purple prose in this one was too much and that the plot was not enough. So I don't know if this is her standard, but this book, I did not like it.
The most interesting part of this book for me was trying to figure out who the murderer was. And if you read the back, this is like, yes, it's a murder mystery with a hint of romance. And it was completely opposite.
And you can't figure it out either. It's not a good murder mystery. Like, I'm very good at that.
Yeah, so am I.
When I read an Agatha Christie novel, I can tell you.
You usually get it, yeah.
Who it is. This one I could not tell you because there aren't actually clues.
Yeah, and I feel like there's so much more time spent on the relationship between Celine and Bastien, and the part that really drew me to this book was the fact that there was a vampire serial killer.
I thought it was a vampire murder mystery, and
that's what I wanted to read about.
And I got Twilight 2.0. I don't give a shit.
This is way better than Twilight.
No, it's not. How many bottles would you give it?
I don't know. I wouldn't read it again. I mean, like, I liked it, but it wasn't like a, oh my god, it's so good. Maybe 2.5.
2.5?
And even I feel like that's a smidgen high. Oh.
I would give this book...
I've read far worse books, but I've also read far better books.
I would give this book, at maximum, 2 bottles.
2 bottles?
At maximum. I'm tempted to give it less, but the last book I gave that lower rating to I didn't even finish it. Like this
I
was
remember
at least
that.
able to finish.
That was the 4 Winds, 1 Storm.
So yeah, not huge fans. You know, it might be a thing of it's not for everybody. Like there were reviews on Goodreads.
Well, and also too, I also feel like I'm a smidgen old for this book. Does that make sense? Like I feel like if I was 16, I would eat that shit up. But I'm not 16 anymore. I'm significantly older. You know.
Want to tell everybody how old you are?
No, I'm not going to tell anybody how old I am.
I can tell them.
Please don't.
You're not even as old as I am.
We're born in the same year, Casey.
Weren't you born later than me?
I'm months older than you.
You are?
Yes.
Why
September and December.
No, I'm thinking of, is it Emily that's born in the same year as Karina?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, 30's not so bad. Anyway, so we didn't rate this book very highly, but on Goodreads, I think it has an average rating of about 3.8. Maybe it is to your taste.
It's not our taste. But
I just didn't care for it.
I feel like this book, if it had been advertised more as a vampire romance, I would have been more prepared
Yeah, if I
for
didn't feel like, it's kind of like the same thing that happened with The Family Upstairs. If I felt like
you thought it was a locked door mystery and it ended up being like horrifying.
It ended up being a cult horror novel, yeah. So sometimes a book's just not to your taste. I'm not out here to say that this author is bad or that she can't write. I mean, obviously she's published and I'm not, so fuck me, I guess. I'm just saying
it's just not to our taste.
I could not enjoy this book.
I think if it was advertised as a vampire romance novel, I probably wouldn't have read it.
Or if you had read it, you would have at least been...
I would have been a little bit more prepared for
expecting
what it entailed. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
I mean, nothing wrong with a good vampire romance book, but...
So yeah, I've seen what this book had to offer, done better.
I go to Molly Harper for that shit.
But done better and gayer by other people. Although Odette was dope, I did like Odette.
I did like Odette. Odette was my favorite character. I want a book about Odette.
Yeah, for real. Tell me about Odette and all of her ladies.
That is something about this book that I thought was very interesting. I was not very invested in Celine and Bastien, but I was invested in all of the secondary characters.
Arjun and Odette.
I want to know more about Arjun. I want to know more about Odette. And Pippa. I very much identified with Pippa. If that doesn't surprise you.
It doesn't. I did not. I was like, Pippa, please. Live a little. Please, Pippa, please, I'm begging you. Let's go on an adventure, Pippa.
Well, and it seems like Pippa, too, with some of the stuff she said about, like, just trying to find a man in a comfortable home and not really being invested in the whole romance thing. I wonder if Pippa's also bats for the other team. Because the only time she shows any kind of love or adoration is for Celine.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, even the gay stuff was not enough to make me... Because the gay stuff was like... It was also just kind of tossed in. Like
I feel like that was tossed in.
I liked Odette, but it was like, oh yeah, she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, great.
Cool.
Can she get more to do, though?
Please.
But anyway, yeah. Not our favorite, but not the worst book we've ever read.
No.
So
Maybe
in the future we'll try a different Renée Ahdieh book or Ahdieh book and see if we like it better. Or who can really say? But that's that one.
Yeah.
Next month we don't know what we're doing yet because we haven't planned that far ahead.
Nope. Because that's April. Heaven forbid we read each other's books again.
Oof.
Oh God.
So yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We will let you know on Facebook or whatever. We may be putting this one up on YouTube, maybe, if our footage kept.
Hopefully.
We'll see how that goes. We might be doing that in the future. Again, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
We don't like to plan anything. We like to just do shit. Also, I'm getting married in like less than 100 days, so I've got other things on my mind.
And I'm helping you plan your wedding, and I've got 2 babies now.
So, thanks so much for listening. Catch us on Spotify.
Also, too, at the mention
places you get your podcast.
At the mention of wedding and babies, we do have a Patreon if you're feeling exceptionally generous.
And you can also catch us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias.
Yep.
But we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturePodcast.com or check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation. Cheers!